Welcome everybody to today's Fuel for Thought webinar. My name is Matt Henderson, a project consultant with the Clean Energy and Manufacturing in Appalachia project. I'm here with Tom Reed, the project manager, and we're glad to have you here today as we're going to learn a little bit more about Edgecom Energy and some data-driven solutions. I tell you, if you like data, you like information, these guys have a lot of cool stuff. Check their website out, which they're going to talk about here in a minute. But just one last reminder, if you do have any questions, I would encourage you to enter those in the chat pod in the top or bottom of the screen. We'll cover as many as time permits. If you could also introduce yourself there too, to let us know who you represent, it kind of helps our speakers with, kind of tailor their comments and, throughout the presentation. So again, we're pleased to have Edgecom Energy with us today. We have Courtney Conway. She's the Customer Integrations Manager, and Sean Marahini, the Chief Revenue Officer with Edgecom. And before we started, we're just chatting before the webinar, and I know these guys have a lot of exciting projects going on, but we know there's a lot of great information they're going to share today, but also how they can work with your companies and for our partners on here, work with some of the manufacturers that you have in your clientele and help them be do things smarter, better, and more profitable. So with that, Courtney and Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you and look forward to hearing your presentation today. Thanks for being here.
Okay, thanks, Matt, and thanks everyone for having us. So good morning. We are going to be doing a webinar today on data-driven approaches to energy management. And as Matt mentioned, we are with Edgecom Energy. So we are an energy management software company. We offer a lot of different services. So just to give a little bit of a brief introduction about myself, I am the Customer Integrations Manager here at Edgecom. I do a lot of front-facing communications with our clients. I also talk with our utilities and our stakeholders to make sure projects are going smoothly and implemented correctly. And here I'll pass off to Sean to give a brief introduction on himself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Marahimi. I'm one of the managing partners here and Chief Revenue Officer at Edgecom Energy. I'm with the company from the beginning, and I more or less look after all our expansion plans, RevOps, and our tech roadmap is also heavily influenced by me and my team. So good to be here, and I look forward to a lot of good questions at the end. So,
thanks, Sean. Okay, so who are we? So I'll just start with our mission statement. Our mission is to enable responsible energy consumption for large energy users through data and visibility. How do we do that? So I mentioned that we do have an energy management software, but this all started about 8 years ago now. Our CEO was an energy manager in a large plastic extrusions facility, and he found he was having a lot of challenges, especially with getting data and managing data correctly. So he partnered with a PhD from the University of Waterloo here in Ontario, Canada, and they created a peak prediction software. So this just allows customers to see when the Ontario grid would be at its highest points or highest points of demand. On top of that, our customers really love that, but they wanted to see not only the grid data, but their own facility data as well. This would give them the better ability to actually manage what's going on within their facility to match what's reflecting on the grid itself. And so we call that service Data Track, and how we enable customers to see their facility data is by setting them various different types of IoT sensors, ones that would match whatever it is going on within their facility. So we have CT sensors, temperature sensors, CO2, whatever it is matches your industry specifically, we can do it. We're also hardware agnostic. So if you do have your own software or IoT sensors already in place, we can just grab the data through what's called an API, and that would just host the data on our portal. On top of that, we also release another service called NeuroCharge. So this has to do with battery storage. And what it allows you to do is essentially see your battery health and maintenance on a portal while also allowing us to dispatch it. So this is very helpful for those customers, as I mentioned, who are participating in the peak programs. Sometimes they're not able to reduce their load as efficiently. So DERs and battery storage is a great alternative. So those are just some of our services, the main ones that we do offer. But as you can see, we offer many different services, and we have a lot of experience in grid programs, facility management, operations, DERs. So the list is endless. So to just talk about what we're going to be going over today, this is our agenda. We're going to start about the energy transition and what the current state is in terms of data and where we are. And then we'll go into what data actually enables you to do, how you can use tools to collect data, and then go from there and analyze it. We'll touch a little base on energy management software. We'll talk a little bit of our own software as well and some of the benefits. And then we'll go into best practices for data. We'll also talk a little bit more about our services, including our AI Copilot, which is heavily influenced by the data from our energy management software system. And then we'll end it off with a Q&A session. We also do have a few case studies available if anyone has any questions or wants to know some specific examples of projects that we've worked on.
Perfect.
So I'll leave it off to John now to talk about the energy transition.
Great. Thanks, Courtney. So obviously, energy transition, you might have heard of it, and it's been impacting different industries differently. But at a high level, 30,000 feet up, you're looking at the changes that we're seeing across different industries, from companies looking at electrifying their fleet, going from combustion engines to electric cars, all the way to potentially replacing their ovens that have been gas powered for years to electric ovens, right? And part of that comes from all the regulatory requirements that we see across different states and at a federal level in the U.S. as well, with the ESG reporting, with companies being notified to report on their emissions and so on. And also reducing it. And many companies are starting to look at having some sort of a sustainability roadmap that is tying in all their efforts in electrifying their operation, their processes, into reducing their emissions and their long-term goal of eventually being carbon neutral in their operation. Now, these are the two, I guess, pieces of that puzzle that at a high level, everybody hears about, but we kind of more or less stay in the dark when it comes to the consequences of everything that's happening with electrification and this energy transition. And part of it starts with grid complexities. Whether you're a regulated part of the market or unregulated part of the market, all utilities from, the generation side all the way to distribution and transmission, they all face this problem. So they very quickly realize that it's impossible to keep up with all the demand that is increasing as a result of this electrification, this revolution towards becoming carbon neutral. And with the aging infrastructures that we have in North America, it was abundantly clear that it was impossible to throw unlimited amounts of money in a short period of time to upgrade the grid, to have a number of different power generation facilities without increasing the emissions, without potentially disrupting the supply chain of what we have been used to. And as a part of that, part of what is keeping the grid more or less reliable and up and running is it started with the introduction of what we call grid programs. And these are ways to incentivize energy users to bring down their consumption during certain periods. On the residential side, we've all seen, time of use start getting implemented in your bill. So from a certain time to a certain time during the day for winter and the summer, the peaks happen at different times. And that's been going on for a number of years on the residential side. And when it comes to the commercial and industrial facilities, having levers to play because they have a much larger impact on the total demand on the side of the grid was crucial. So that, grid operators, in a sense, they started figuring out, creative ways to bring about programs that incentivizes energy users to bring down their consumption. And that had a component of complexity. You're doing your own business. Your core business is what's important. That's paramount when it comes to all your operational constraints. But now you have to also deal with, okay, what do I have to do to make sure that I'm not losing money at the end of the day with my operation? And from that, the question mark that came up in a lot of conversations is, okay, well, historically, we've only been just getting a bill at the end of the month, and we have no way of really doing anything about that, but to pay it to keep up with our operation. So it was very clear that lack of data to make insightful decisions around how to operate, how to become more efficient, what was a gap in the market, and that's that also more or less highlights the roadmap that Edgecom Energy has taken towards providing services under one umbrella to make sure that it's not only easy to understand, but to also easy to make changes and for it to stay relevant to every operation. So with that said, we've seen a lot of changes in the manufacturing space, especially with the rising costs and affecting your bottom line. There are certain things that are completely out of your control, for example, rising material costs. And we started seeing that, on the onset of the pandemic, early 2022, we started seeing a sharp increase in raw material costs and transportation costs. And all of that, a lot of manufacturers had a hard time coping with. And as a result of that, many consumers were also seeing the impact on, their spending. And part of the reason that we're in the current state of economy is the sharp increase in the cost for pretty much everything. Now, labor cost is no different. That's always had this upward trend for many, many years. But we've seen starting, when COVID hit, that also started to go up quite a bit. And that was in line with the story of, okay, everybody's got to tighten their belts and figure out a way to remain profitable and figure out a way to look at ways to not only improve the production processes, but to also reduce costs. And hopefully as a byproduct of reducing your consumption, reducing your cost, you will also end up reducing your emissions, which is a desired outcome in many, many manufacturing facilities. Now, energy cost was no different. We've seen the fluctuations back and forth for many years, right? But the trend has been upward, and part of the demand and supply part of the equation also dictates how the cost and in everything when it comes to utilities, whether it's water, gas, or electricity, has been constantly going up, right? And that also has a line item on your financial statement, your profit and loss, that shows here's how much we spent on energy this past year. And unless you're adapting to that and constantly increasing your prices to stay ahead of those costs, you won't be able to survive in that environment. And then what creeps up is the competition. At some point, one of your competitors could be implementing a lot more agile processes and more efficient ways of processing and manufacturing that will really put you out of touch when it comes to your consumer pricing, when it comes to your go-to-market strategies. So with that said, these are some of the things that from research that we've done seem to be a global pain point for many, not only manufacturing, but also commercial entities. I'll pass it back to Courtney.
So as we mentioned, there is a lack of data. That's one of our biggest problems. Apart from the rising costs, the lack of data is one of them. And being able to solve that problem gives you a lot of opportunities. So that's kind of what we're going to be discussing a little bit today, is those data-driven insights that you're able to get. And as Sean mentioned, the grid complexity has enabled a lot of grid programs to be available. But again, to participate in those and to actually, efficiently make the best out of them, you need that data to be able to see what your facility is able to do. In turn, you also need that data to optimize your production and your energy processes, right? If you know that working a certain shift at a certain time is very expensive, then you know that you could shift it to a different time that's a bit more efficient for you if that is applicable. But the only way that you can even get to that determination is to have the data available to do so. Similarly, if you want to do a retrofit, you need to have some data to show whether it's your manager or financial department, the justifications for how that retrofit would actually work and how they would incur savings, whether that be energy-wise, emissions-wise, and then similarly, enhanced decision-making, right? If you want to make those decisions, not just for retrofits, but other parts of your facility as well, maybe you want to add some different types of compressors or chillers or different types of assets. For you to be able to do that, you need buy-in, ideally from someone above you. And to be able to get that buy-in, the one thing you need, again, is data. So data enables you to do all of these things. And as Sean mentioned in the previous slide, we are in lack thereof. But similarly, with the rise of energy costs, we're kind of at a twofold here, right? Everything is increasing in cost, and then you have a lack of this data. How are you going to be able to solve that problem by getting more data if you're already at a loss for what you're able to do within your facility? So the ultimate goal of energy data is to increase energy efficiency, reduce costs, and contribute to sustainability goals. We already know that, but how do we get there with the state that we're in, where the cost of everything is so expensive and you need to keep consistently getting data to make better decisions and implementations? So the current approach is to gather whatever data you're able to do within your facility, however you do so, analyze it, create some sort of implementation plan for whatever it is you want to change. For example, if it is a retrofit, then you would implement whatever new asset you were trying to get buy-in for. And then afterwards, you would validate those changes. And all in all, that takes a lot of time to complete all 4 of those steps. In the current state where we're at, where we're using a lot of manual tools and different forms of analysis. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, companies waste 30% of the energy they consume. So how are we going to be able to reduce this number or even bring it down to 0 if our current approaches are laggy and take a long time? And all in all of your competitors are also dealing with the same problem. And if you have inefficient data processes and they don't, then they're going to be laughing at you while you're unfortunately in the ground, probably in an Excel sheet somewhere, trying to figure out what to do with all the data that you have or the data that you don't have, and you're trying to bridge a gap somewhere. So going back to gathering data, what are the best practices available right now to do so? So power meters or M&V kits. So this could be a kit that has various types of sensors that you can use to measure different types of assets within your facility. That's great for retrofit justification, but it's a little difficult because you only have it for a little bit of time, right? It's not constantly on your device monitoring 24/7. But then you have IoT sensors as well. So you can latch something onto your device and have it monitoring all the time. Then you're getting into the problem where you now have too much data because you might not know what to do with data that's being monitored 24/7. Similarly, you have your SCADA or business automation system. Again, those are tapped in all the time. So there's a lot of data available there. And then similarly, your online utility portals. Right now, a lot of utilities are making the transition to make a lot of information available online, including your bills, which were a classic form of data collection in the past. In fact, it was, for the most part, the only form of data collection for most facilities, because in the end of the day, all you really had to get energy data from was your bill, right? That kilowatt consumption and then your cost. So now that you have all these various forms of collecting data, like how do you analyze it? The most classic way to do so is through Excel, or you can hire a consultant, which is kind of costly. You also have energy management software, which is something that we're going to talk about as well, and leading into AI, artificial intelligence. So I'm going to pass this off to Sean because he has a lot of experience in these, and especially because he gets a lot of feedback from customers being in sales, what their challenges are for using these tools.
I like staying frontline because I try to keep or stay relevant to the conversations. And before the start of this, I was asking Matt, what type of industries our guests are from. But I think this more or less applies to a wide range of different industries. And I think if you are problem aware, if you know that you need to collect data, the chances are, just like many industries, this is the top 80% of all industries, small, medium-sized industries, that they would use an Excel spreadsheet. They would have somebody assigned to go down and on a production floor, go down to every equipment, write down or put in the equipment or the meter readings from each production line, bring all that back in, upload it to some sort of a database or most of them, they would just keep that Excel sheet and they would have a copy of it on some sort of a server. But then it becomes a nightmare to not only find, insightful information from this collection of data that you've just done, but it's also a very tedious and labor-intensive process. Hiring a consultant is another way that many companies have really gone down that path. And by, they go to a third party, first they have to teach them what they do so that they understand, to about 30–40% what their processes look like. And then they start doing, measurements, and they bring about this massive fancy report that's only a snapshot of the duration that they were doing this study. So what happens after that, right? So you set a baseline for today, but what happens next week? What happens if you get a large order in? What happens if your environment changes? All that is missed from this report. And they might highlight it or prioritize certain level of action items that you might be able to go through, and you prioritize it based on your budget allocation. But at the end, it's very difficult to do that continuously. You can't be constantly hiring a consultant or have a third party really understand your processes. At the end of the day, you know best what your business is about, what your core business is, what your constraints are, and what you need to do to make that more efficient. Energy management software has been a great tool for a lot of companies. That was, I guess, the stepping stone into entering the world of data. But that also has its own set of nuances, right? So as you get more and more data points into your energy management, at some point, not only the novelty might wear off, but people stop using it. People stop seeing the value that it delivers. Yes, it's collecting information, and over time, it gives you a set of guidelines and baselines to manage your operation. But how much of that information are you really missing from your decision-making process? And we all talk about AI, we all talk about artificial intelligence and so on. But at the end of the day, the applications and the tools that AI enables when it comes to processing data cannot be overlooked, right? So in a process that the sheer volume of data is really drowning you in analytics and decision-making processes, having a virtual energy manager that can highlight your high priority items becomes absolutely crucial in staying up to date and staying relevant to your industry and to your customers at the end of the day. The second stage from, let's say that you analyze everything and now you have to implement them, right? So you go and set the goals and objectives. Now, all of this is away from your core business. Imagine you're manufacturing, you're producing something, and all of a sudden you've got to set certain goals and objectives based on the data that you've developed, assuming that the data that you've collected is relevant, that your analysis is correct. You have to develop an action plan. You get your management support and allocate budgets and get your stakeholders, define your success criteria, and then implement those changes, only to be left with the question mark that did this really address the problem that we had? Are we really doing what's necessary? Is this the best bang for our buck or not, right? And then if you don't have the baselines, if you don't have the data to support what you just did, made a change in your processes, you will be left in the dark. And your purchasing manager is going to come to you and say, well, okay, well, show me that the last motor that you changed, that you upgraded, was that really effective? That give me 20% improvement in my total consumption or not, right? And then imagine as you're increasing your orders, as you're improving your production capabilities, orders come in, all of a sudden you've got a different baseline that's not been normalized by the increase in your production. So you're looking at your consumption when you were at, say, 50% production capacity as opposed to 80% production capacity. How often are those numbers adjusted based on the increase in output? You'll have a hard time analyzing your KPI. You'll have a hard time reporting and documenting your changes. We have a customer down in Peoria near Chicago, and one of the things that I asked them when it comes to data collection and processes, I asked them, why do people buy your product? And their answer was sustainability. So what they do is they actually put in a bunch of biodegradable stuff in a garbage bag, and they pass it through the line, and on the other end comes out a fabric of some sort that, based on the requirements or based on the criteria that the customer defined for them, they would use that for different applications. And so the customers, mostly European, and a lot of US entities, ask them for what was the emission of the last batch that you shipped me. It's a nightmare for them to go and figure out, okay, well, what was the total CO2 that this batch that we shipped out to customer ABC emitted, that we have to actually report and provide that. So without that level of real-time analysis and real-time visibility to your operation, it would continue being a major problem in how you address those challenges.
So I'll talk a little bit about energy management software, which is one of the solutions that we touched base on a little bit. And as you know, we are an energy management software company. This is actually a screenshot of what our data track solution looks like. If you did have your water, power, and gas mains monitored with us, we'd be able to give you a nice overview of what your consumption has been up until that date. Nice overview of all your sensors. So that's just a little overview of what that image is showing you there. But energy management software is it's a very great tool as Sean had mentioned. It's ideal for small manufacturers and medium-sized manufacturers because there might not be a dedicated team to gathering energy data or someone within an energy or sustainability team itself. So using a software is very cost effective in that sense. It also allows you to do data visualization. So as I showed you there, there's an overview of your sensors, but if you're actually to hover over to a different tab, you'd be able to see actual graphs and heat maps and tables of your actual facility operations, whether that be your utility mains, as mentioned there, power, water, or gas, or your downstream assets, which we have various sensors that we can connect to, and then be able to provide you with that data visualization. It provides useful and actionable insights. So not all energy management software does this. Some of it just shows you the data right then and there, but it doesn't actually give you anything further than that. We've worked really hard with our engineering team to be able to provide insights based on the data that is within the actual software management. The energy management software. So as Sean mentioned, having those Excel sheets, you can have tons of data available, but you're not actually getting anything out of it unless you do a lot of work to be able to get those insights yourself. Having some sort of software that's delivering those insights to you directly bypasses a lot of the work that you'd actually have to do on your own. Similarly, having to generate reports, this is something that is going to be very in demand in the next few years as government mandates increase and ESG reporting becomes more of a thing. You will need to generate reports with certain numbers using different formulas and calculations, and energy management software can definitely help you to do this. So as mentioned, most small and medium manufacturers don't have a dedicated person to be doing all this different work, to be visualizing the data, creating those actionable insights, and then creating the numbers to put into those reports, and then even submitting the reports, right? So a software is definitely a great option if you don't have someone to do that, because it can essentially do all that work for you. Another point that is very important to make that we briefly touched on when we were talking about grid complexity is real-time data, right? So having data real-time is we found for our customers is extremely beneficial, especially for customers who have production that is changing time to time. For example, the company that Sean mentioned that was in Chicago, their production line changes every minute or so. Yeah. So for them, for the data to be insightful for them, they actually need data every second, every single minute to be able to see any changes or fluctuations within their production lines. So real-time data is important, but also real-time data that is applicable to your facility. Not all energy management softwares offer this. Ours does because of those IoT sensors that we mentioned. So if you have any questions regarding that specifically, we'd love to answer that later on, or even showcase some case studies of facilities that have implemented those different sensors and have used their different time resolutions to be able to get those insights. But the bottom line is that energy management software is a great tool for those small and medium manufacturers, people who don't have explicit teams dedicated to do all these things on the points listed here. And again, you get to the other problem, which is too much data, which again, the energy management software can resonate with a little bit, like it's giving you those insights and everything, but I'll let Sean touch on some other issues associated with.
So this guy just drowned in data, as you can see. If I scroll over it, like just gone, right? So obviously, you know, with any energy management software, I still remember the day that we launched our AI Copilot. I got a call right after the launch webinar from one of our longtime, I guess, manufacturing prospects that we've been trying to, you know, have a meaningful conversation with. And he invited us to his plant. And so I went in, and the first question I asked him, this is a 3 million square feet plant. And I asked him, I said, why now, right? What happened? What really piqued your interest during that webinar that you're now asking for that? And he said, look, I've got 18 people, both online and here in the room. These are all our energy managers. And we've got over 5,000 sensors reporting every minute a data point that they have to analyze. And it's getting to a point that we're just basically putting up our hand. It's impossible, right? It's impossible to prioritize. It's impossible to keep an eye on everything. It's impossible to identify opportunities. It's impossible to really understand what the next step might look like. And that was I guess what some might call analysis paralysis when it comes to, I guess, the amount of data that they were getting. It was just so overwhelming that it was impossible for them. And that was the solution to I guess, analyzing all that and providing with insightful answers to this. And the applications are endless when it comes to different categories. With our AI Copilot, there are 3 different insight levels that you could tap into: energy insight, financial insight, and production insight. And every application is going to be different, but we've built it so easy to understand and to interact with that it's basically built on a model. I'm not sure how many people have used ChatGPT, but it's a similar type of interactive user interface where you actually type in the question that you have about energy, finance, production that's related. And it goes back and understands all your processes over time. And it goes back to all the sensors that are related to that question and replies or gives you an answer to those questions. Going back to our customer in Peoria, since I started with that. So nowadays they actually just type in the question. They upload their production data onto our AI Copilot, and they ask the question, hey, what was the emission for the last batch that we shipped out to customer XYZ? And, fraction of a second, it comes back and gives them that answer, which they can use to report back. It gives them information. There's another customer that's an extrusion facility. And since the installation of our sensors and getting them onboarded to our platform, they've managed to find north of $100,000 in savings in just a short few months. And we had an interview with him a couple of days ago after about a year, I think, or so that he's been using it now. And one of the neat things that he said that the AI Copilot was able to identify for him that, they have a number of VFDs, and based on the meters that they have on each of these VFDs, they realized, or the AI Copilot identified 2 of them were consuming 30% more power on average compared to the rest of their variable frequency drives. So that, triggered an investigations on their part, and they realized that the 2 that were consuming, they just did not, they did not have the variable frequency drive actually active. So it was more of a regular motor that was running. So from that, they were able to identify that and quickly revert it back. And without the help or the constant 24/7 monitoring of their data, this would have been impossible to identify, right? The applications are endless, but from this, you can really interact with an ally of some sort. I call it a virtual energy manager that gives you those insights that you can take and plan accordingly. Obviously the expected benefits are endless as well. So when you are looking at whether it's an energy management software or some sort of an AI tool to help you make those decisions easier, not only it helps you, measure your improvements efficiently without really assigning an individual, without that one person that has to run up and down your production floor and write down numbers. That could be using, doing something else that's a lot more productive. You become a lot more proactive in what to do next. What are the steps that I have to take using the data, using the set of the importance, I guess the granularity of the data points that you collect will help you make those decisions better and be a lot more proactive in preventing waste in a sense, right? Participating more effectively in grid programs by kind of using all this data and having an AI agent analyze it and incorporating the complexities of grid programs. You'll be able to kind of figure out what programs should you participate in? Which ones do make sense? Do you need to get a battery, let's say, or invest in some sort of a distributed energy resource, whether it's a generator, whatever that is? Does it make sense financially? And also ability to remotely monitor facility, right? We have even at the cottage for a reason. One of our very first customers one of his main pain points was that, during the summer season, we get a lot of these peaks, we get a lot of issues with the, at the plant level. And I'm always the last person to know if I'm away. And he loved going to his cottage, and this is a 24/7 plant. And right now he can see it on his laptop or his phone that there's an alarm that shows up. So he can, instantly have that peace of mind. He's like, you guys have brought my anxiety level down by 100% when it comes to this thing, right? So that's a reason for that. But have a better life, right? And then switch places between your competitors.
So that kind of ties in most of our presentation.
Yeah.
We do have a case study if anyone has any questions or wants to say
I can quickly touch on this because I think it's an important and easy to understand type of application. So this customer Paperworks, they have 8 facilities. What they do is they manufacture all the boxes and wrapping and so on for the fast food industry. So Burger King is a customer. I think Chipotle is a customer. Pepsi is a customer. Anyway, so one of the things that they had no visibility or understanding of, why is it that our plant in Kentucky, on average, the equipment or everything that we're putting out is costing 20% more than the rest of the plants? Sorry, Tom, am I going over time here?
Yeah, we are kind of getting to the wrap-up point. But if you want to go ahead and finish your thought there.
Yeah, so anyway, but the application was to let's find the data, let's use the AI tool to analyze that data and figure out how do we improve our operations. And now they've got a clear, phased out a process in place to standardize their applications and their processes for every facility, tying in grid programs, tying in different opportunities that are available in different states, and figuring out how to improve and standardize their costing mechanism when it comes to their outputs. I just kind of wanted to say that, and that pretty much wraps up our presentation.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. This is some really good information. I think, it's always a question as to, for a manufacturer as to where they're at, what kind of usage they're at, how they can improve. And I think you've got some great tools and ways to help a company see where they are today and how they can, maybe save some money and make some adjustments. So I think that's all fantastic. So thank you all for your time. I do know that I saw Peter raised his hand. Did you want to ask a question? Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, let me just bring up the chat because I don't think I see that here. The chat is...
Well, I think he was going to ask it. No question. Okay, sorry, Peter. I saw you raise your hand at one point. So no, this is great. So I just at a high level for any of the Edgecom folks on here. So small, we definitely work with some smaller manufacturers. And so can you talk a little bit about, they may not have, like how much time would the staff at the company need to kind of set aside for this? And is there any downtime needed in order to install some of the equipment? Just that sort of thing that I think a lot of manufacturers think about.
That's a great question. And it ties into most of our sensors don't require downtime. All of them are plug and play. We don't even need an electrician doing it. It could be any technician or somebody that's, hands-on with the equipment. But to answer your question about how long it takes, I'll give you an example. So that extrusion company that I mentioned as an example, they had 48 of our sensors installed, in an afternoon? Yeah. So I have one of them here. So this is a CT meter, all wireless, by the way. And so this comes in all pre-provisioned, and it's got these clip-ons that go around the cable, and you close it, press the button, off it goes. That's it. And it automatically starts uploading the data to this, which is our hub, the portal. And this has the ability to support up to 500 sensors over almost a mile in radius. Right, so that was the problem that we had to solve. Make it inexpensive, scalable, easy to install, and quick to upload the data on that platform. And it does not even it does not need access to your Wi-Fi or internal network. It's got a SIM card inside of it, so it uploads it to a local cell tower, and that's a huge security relief when it comes to IT departments or people concerned about their internal networks, privacy and security.
Oh, yeah, no, that's great to know. Okay, great. Well, I think this is going to be a valuable tool for a lot of manufacturers. I appreciate your time, and you know, definitely, I saw that Puneet Shetty is on as well from AMT, and they're the ones that kind of introduced us to Edgecom, and so yeah, we're looking forward to getting the information about your company out. And for those manufacturers who are in the 156 counties of the Clean Energy Manufacturing in Appalachia program, we do have a mini grant program that might be able to offer some grant funds that could help offset some of the costs to invest in this effort. So looking forward to working with you all more. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, you can certainly reach out to myself, Matt Henderson, any of the Edgecom folks, and we will be glad to follow up with you individually.
Right. Well, thank you for having us.
Thanks again.